Okay, good evening. Today is June 7th, 2018. This is the meeting of the Hyde Park Central School District Board of Education meeting. And for the information of the viewing public, one of our members is in Germany and he is conferenced in. Mike Sikorsky is attending the meeting via video conference. May I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss confidential matters pertaining to the union negotiations, non-union salaries, terms and conditions, and the superintendent's contract, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Yes, I'm raising my hand.
Okay.
You're going to have to say
Thank
yes.
Okay, he did say yes.
Yeah.
We are now in executive session. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let me just move down here. Okay. Upcoming events. I'm surprised graduation isn't on there, but I guess.
All of them?
Yeah, well.
We can talk
Okay,
about it.
all right. We have actually one cancellation. There was an organ recital at the FDR that appears in the printed calendar, and that has been canceled. That was for June 14th at 7 p.m. So there will not be an organ recital on June 14th at 7 p.m. On Tuesday.
Can we put that on the website, Jay?
Just like on the homepage, might be where, yeah. While I'm
'cause
thinking about it now,
it still shows on
I'm going to forget.
yeah, because I have it on my calendar. It
We'll
shows-
just put it on the homepage, not even on a calendar.
Okay.
Thank you.
On Tuesday, July 10th, is the next Board of Education meeting, and that was the annual organizational meeting. And that's all I have for upcoming events. However, we all know that in a couple weeks, graduation will be upon us, so.
That's at 6 o'clock
Mr.
on
Leader,
Friday night.
I think you missed a board meeting. Is,
Oh,
is
yeah.
there one the 21st?
Yes.
The
of June?
21st, yeah, we can announce it that, but it's the next night. But, okay. Pride.
I don't have it on.
What do we got? Leah, you got Pride?
Okay, I actually have Pride for you guys because it's my second to last board meeting. So I'll go up here so I can see you all.
Okay.
But it's a nice thank you letter. So, dear board, over the past 9 months, you have provided me with life skills and knowledge that I will use for the rest of my career. You have been wonderful colleagues, and I'd like to take a moment to thank you all for all you've done for me. My first board meeting ever was while James was still the student member, and I made it through about an hour and a half before I thought, this is the worst thing ever, and left. James's look that pleaded, get me out of here, as I left was one I'll never forget, and definitely one I have now given many times. But 3 months later, I found myself nominated for the position, and I wasn't going to accept, but Mr. Batita convinced me otherwise. Maybe it's a melancholy sort of retrospect taking effect, but I'm certainly glad I did. My first meeting as a student member was one of the longest on record. It went until at least 10. I left that meeting resenting every single one of you, especially those of you who asked a lot of questions, Mr. Mittermeier. Turns out that same presentation that took so long would come back over and over and over again. One time a meeting took so long that Mr. Sheldon handed out cookies. But as the months and meetings went on, I began to enjoy the politics and tedious work of it all, even if occasionally I wanted to throw my shoe at one of you or at a member of the public. I also got this nifty badge that got me into whatever door is closest to my car and out of the cold during the winter. Of course, getting to know all of you as more than just people who like to hear themselves talk has been a pleasure. But I'd really like to thank you for giving me such an incredible opportunity. This position got me into my dream school. Literally, their acceptance letter said this was what got me in. However, their 80 grand price tag was not such a dream. This position has opened up so many doors for me and taught me a lot more than I expected. I now have an excellent poker face. So thank you for opening up the table to me and for giving future students this incredible opportunity. Thank you.
Thanks, Leah. And of course, you set the bar. Actually, way up there, so,
I think you're up for it.
Oh,
all right, you got any other pride, like everybody's really
No, we've
happy
just
the
kind of
school's
been in-
ending?
Yeah, well, we're all very excited that there are 2 days left, and I'm just ready for graduation, and everything's
Okay.
kind of dying down, so.
And you remember, you can't make the president look bad when you give a fantastic speech, and I have to follow you, all right? It's like, okay. Any other?
Yeah,
we
just
had-
a few noteworthy events. Maybe you want to go first?
Sure. Can I borrow yours because I don't want to mess up this setup here?
Sure.
So this is just a nice piece of pride and a follow-up. We had talked about Project Lead the Way Gateway at the middle school, and we are going to be offering design and modeling, which is a module for Project Lead the Way for 8th graders next year in the fall. Teachers getting trained this summer.
Great,
So we're starting.
well.
Thank you.
That is
Yes.
good.
Welcome.
Yes, we're on the road. We had a number of events that I just want to highlight. The FDR award ceremony, Leah, you must have been tired at the end, walking up to the stage. We were certainly recognized several times. One of our board members' sons, Mike Zagorski, received an award, but so many students were honored on FDR Awards Night, and I will say this one at FDR High School was one of the best, most streamlined,
Well
smoothly run
Very well, yes.
award ceremony. So congratulations to all of our senior recipients, and we even had some juniors that get some awards. The Hyde Park Education Field of Honor on Memorial Day weekend was incredibly moving. The entire weekend was just spectacular. If you had an opportunity to go see the flags, they were a little further back off the road than we originally thought. We think we'll be able to get them closer to the road next year so that you can see the visual as you drive by. Everything from opening ceremony with the Rhinebeck Aerodrome and the World War II planes who did a flyover, to Kiara coming back and playing taps at the ceremony. Deanna closed the ceremony as our other I'm an ex officio member of the committee. A real thank you to our facilities and operations people who helped out, and to all the board members and committee members of the Hyde Park Education Foundation. We do know that they sold almost all of their flags. So they had about 240. They sold almost all of them. They got several generous corporate donations. So as soon as we have the tally and they're ready to share with us, we'll share it. And then the process begins. All of the money, the profits, go to the minimal costs of, paperwork for the Hyde Park Education Foundation. Other than that, it all comes back to programs in the district for enrichment for students. So we're really looking forward to seeing all the benefits. And thank you, everybody who came out, and the National Park Service, who we weren't allowed to say they were partners for some strange reason, but they were unofficial partners. Last night I attended the FDR concert in the park at Vanderbilt with the Haviland Middle School Band and the FDR High School Band, and it was the first time in a long time that it didn't get rained out. So it was a beautiful concert on a beautiful, no buggy, cool evening at FDR. I didn't have a chance to go to Race for the Cure, but I understand that was a spectacular event down on the river. That's the race that they get to dress up. And I want to personally thank Mr. Duffy. I was unable to attend the athletic banquet, and we felt that for someone to step in my place, I generally say a few words at the athletic banquet, and I couldn't think of anybody better than someone on our board who is closest to our athletic community on several fronts to stand in. So if you want to talk about that athletic banquet, but I want to personally thank you for being there for me instead of me.
Yeah, I felt that the athletic banquet went very well. one of the goals was to start getting the coaches to come out in more numbers for the students there, and we did see a table full of coaches, which was nice to see. The award ceremony was run very well, much to my surprise, because he's always a kibitzer, but Kevin Hart did a wonderful job as the MC. And I will always remember this athletic conference and this athletic award ceremony for one specific reason. Until about 10 days before it was going on, it became known to me that my son Brian, who graduated in '78, was actually the guest speaker to the students about the future that held them for graduation. The original speaker had to opt out, I said a good word, but couldn't do it, and based on the recommendation of several of his teachers, they gave him a call. He offered to do it, and I thought he did a fantastic job. I'm pushing my wife to get a copy of his speech and publish it on the athletic website, because it was something that I think really got to the point of the things that the kids should be considering at this transition point. What to take from where they've been and what to use it, how to use it going forward, which was, I think, a theme that you really had relevance to what the kids were doing. And if I had to make an observation, shall we say, my daughter was there to hear her brother speak, and she brought her youngest son, who is probably the antsiest of kids that we have in the family right now, and he didn't move for the entire 10 minutes of the speech. Whether he was hypnotized by my son or he just really was enthralled by it, it was something to see. And I apologize to everybody that may have noticed I spent about 10 minutes of the speech crying, in a sense, with tears running down my face because of my son doing it, the way he was doing it, and also the references to my deceased boy, my deceased son, and his influence in athletics and getting Brian into it. And I just thought it was a fantastic day. I truly enjoyed it.
Great.
Just one other comment on the field of flags. There was one thing, I don't know if it was intentional, but there was one other, not event, but one other thing that went along at the field of flags was that Lori Wolliver,
Oh, yes, the music.
our former music teacher who had a major part year after year in the presentation of the plays, decided she wanted to be part of it. So she contacted and had 30 alumni from prior plays come back. They rehearsed 3 days, and they did a one and a half hour presentation where they highlighted songs from plays that they had presented. It was a fantastic show. I don't know how you get that kind of accomplishment in 3 days, but they were fantastic. And I'm hearing now that she's going to expand that for the next year and try and bring a band in besides. And it was an amazing way to highlight to people interested in the school district the accomplishments and the capabilities that these kids learned in programs other than just straight academics. You know, the music program and the kids that participated in it just highlighted the work and sort of put a circle around the fact that we've been recognized as an outstanding musical contribution district in the country.
Thank you. Right.
One more thing. This is Patrick. He's my replacement for next year. Mr. Heater asked me to introduce him, so, yeah.
Welcome, Patrick.
You're welcome, yeah.
ISO.
Nearby, I can get a ride with to the meetings. We live around the corner.
Congratulations. Congratulations. We hope you experience your time on the board and get everything out of it that Leah has. And I think you'll go through the same phase. Why did I do this?
You'll hate it.
To really understanding at a certain level what gets accomplished and how we do it. So congratulations. Thank you for volunteering and getting elected or wherever you got. So we'll see you the start of the school year next year. So great.
You're welcome to come to the reorg on July 10th.
10th.
And next meeting, too.
fair warning, that's a really long meeting. So,
Probably don't want to start your year that way.
But I won't be there to make it longer.
Come and wish us luck in the upcoming year? Oh, my gosh.
We have an official pride now, and we'd like to ask Kim Neisel, our Director of Math and Science, to come forward with Debbie Furman. And Debbie is our IBM ambassador. As most of you know, we have traditionally had an IBM Engineering Week or E-Week, and they come and visit the schools. And I won't say any much more because Kim's going to do it, but I just did thank Debbie because the IBM Ambassador Program is new. Are you going to explain that?
If you want me to.
No, well, oh, yeah, yes. Well, when you guys do it, but
Okay.
it's a noticeable difference. We've had a great partnership with IBM, but the concept of having our very own IBM ambassador has elevated the whole program in the district. So you guys can take it away, and thank you.
So thanks, Greer. I asked Debbie to come up and share the spotlight with me. I'm really proud to introduce her to the board and the community. And it is a brand new program. She's our IBM STEM ambassador. Some of you may know Debbie as a very active and involved Hyde Park parent, but she really took on a leadership role by volunteering to be our IBM STEM ambassador this year. So I wanted to take you through some slides and tell you some of the work that we've done together. So in the fall, I think it was November, we took around 30 Haviland Middle School students to the IBM Think It Fall Expo, and Debbie helped to organize all of that. They spent the morning working on STEM activities, teacher chaperoned, and then they got to look at some cognitive technology through the work of Watson. Debbie has always been involved really with our high school. She worked with our computer programming students to present on engineering and what it's like to be a senior software test engineer. She also leads a group of wonderful engineers who've been in our buildings all year. So she presented on that. She always comes into Ms. Parker's classes to talk about a career in math when Ms. Parker has her career math day. And she really has been involved with Mr. Chakowski and Ms. Schimmelfinning in trying to increase the number of females taking some of our computer programming classes at FDR, which is wonderful. Another thing that she's done is she visited our 7th grade AVID classroom at Haviland Middle School. Those students are getting ready to think about careers and what types of classes they'd like to take at the high school. So they invited her in, and honestly, anything we asked you to do, you just did, which was great.
I like to get out of work.
So a really, really big initiative was Raspberry Pi. They are small devices. You can see one at the top. They're little mini computers, and they're very inexpensive, very small, and they have really incredible gaming and coding capabilities. So Debbie came in during our Hour of Code. She actually helped to organize that Hour of Code because we brought our computer classes down from FDR. She and a big group, a big team that worked for her came and showed the kids how to use the devices, how to set them up, and how to do some basic coding, and they absolutely loved it. She also did that at FDR, which I'll talk about in a second. For at least the second year in a row, she has organized Discover E-Week for us, which is National Engineers Week, which I think was in March this year. So for grades 3 through 8, Debbie came, she organized everything with me, brought engineers from IBM who volunteered their time to go into tons of classrooms and see hundreds of kids and do a wonderful STEM challenge and activity with them. So that's been going on in at least 2 years, I think you've done.
Thousands of kids.
Yeah, thousands of kids. You're right, it is thousands.
It's like 3,500
Yeah. And finally, we were just talking, she has submitted an IBM community grant for Hyde Park, which is wonderful. So we'll let you know about that. But really, because of the number of volunteers and the amount of time they spent in the district, she was able to apply for that for us. So we're really, really happy. Thank you for doing that. And then one of the most wonderful activities, they say a picture is worth 1,000 words, so here are some pictures, and I'm going to leave Debbie with 1,000 words that our community-based class wrote to you and your team at the high school. It was Miss Juliet Boone's class, and they had an amazing time learning about Raspberry Pi and coding, and she really saw a diverse group of students, and like I said, you really did anything that we asked you to do. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Their words.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. This is
Thank you.
one of our most valued partnerships with community organizations, businesses.
Okay.
I don't have to do anything, do I? Oh, my God.
Anything else for the superintendent's report?
No, nothing there.
Nothing else? That brings us to the chemistry book proposal. Yeah. Could have stayed up there. You could have stayed over there.
Sorry.
Okay, thanks again. So we have a chemistry textbook proposals for our AP chemistry class at the high school. The reason for the request, we do have an obligation through the AP College Board to use a recently published textbook, and their definition is within the last 10 years. So our old AP text was dated 2007, so we are required to adopt an updated version or alternate textbook. So I did bring a book, but we're really focusing on purchasing the ebook.
Okay.
Yes, we're really excited about it.
All right.
So I kind of wrote it backwards. We are
You lived
getting
long enough to see it.
the ebook, and what comes with the ebook, I just want to take 2 minutes of your time and show you a quick video. They have a test bank for the AP Chemistry book, of course a teacher's edition, a resource guide. They give you a free print textbook, so we actually do get the textbook by purchasing the ebook. It's kind of the way it works. But we do have a need for some hard copy books, so that's wonderful too. But with it comes an online homework tool called OWL Volume 2, and it's a subscription. And just really quickly, it's 2 minutes. I'd like to show you a little bit about that because it's a kind of new and innovative approach to resources that can go with a textbook. Oh, I don't have to bend down. I just have to be able to see. Okay, I can do it.
My name is Barbara Oakley. I'm a professor of engineering at Oakland University, and I work with the University of California, San Diego, and with Coursera as their inaugural innovation instructor. My course that I've taught with since Steve Francis Kirk, professor at the Salk Institute, is the world's largest massive open online course. We've got close to 2 million students now, registered students. You're learning to drive a car. You don't just sit there, put it in reverse gear, and then you back up, and then, hey, magically, you suddenly know how to back up a car. You have to practice with it. So learning in chemistry is a lot like learning to back up your car. Each specific bit of information you need to know and concept, you want to practice with it until it flows smoothly in your mind. So what this does is it develops neural patterns that are well connected, and you can easily draw these patterns to mind. This is what we call the concept of neural chunking. And chunking is important in any kind of learning. And getting this expertise with this particular tidbit and that little bit of information, and then you've practiced enough, and then you can relate them both together. And you learn chemistry in much the same way you learn to sing or you learn to play a musical instrument. The OWL system, what that seems to do is it allows students to naturally get that practice that helps build the connections within their minds in a way that slightly different each time. And when they make a mistake, they get a little feedback, and that feedback isn't 2 weeks later when the assignment is graded. It's immediate. So rapid feedback and a lot of feedback and opportunities to practice are absolutely critical for developing any kind of expertise. And I think that systems like OWL would be exactly what we need to help students to develop well in this age. A lot of times students just say, I can't do chemistry, not because they can't do it, but because they don't know how to learn effectively. And this system kind of naturally propels them into effective ways of learning.
Sorry, I didn't expect that to be that loud. So I just wanted to show you a portion of the video really quickly to show you that this resource comes along with the textbook. It's actually a really popular thing that's happening in college in chemistry. I watched my daughter, who's a recent graduate, take her chemistry course and have this experience. So kids will have the opportunity to really engage with their one-to-one devices. The ebook is available offline, and so is the OWL questioning. You can access it offline through an app, so that's good to know too. And it really is a great formative feedback and a great way for us to use our technology. So that does come along with the textbook. Does anybody have any questions for me about our book?
Come on, Steve.
How long is the subscription?
It is 6 years. So it's interesting. I was just thinking about that. That's the typical textbook. The textbook companies say that 6 years is really the time you should replace textbooks. So 7 years or 10 years is we would have to re-up the subscription because of the 10-year requirement through the AP College Board, but it is 6 years.
And is the cost of the books increasing? Or I always hoped that electronic copies of books would decrease because there were no physical media and therefore no manufacturing cost. Are we seeing any movement in that context?
You know, I will tell you just the cost in general of the textbooks and the ebooks is pretty similar. I haven't seen a decrease.
Okay.
My numbers are here for you, and they are pretty similar to just purchasing a college textbook.
Okay,
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Is there a way for the board members to experience or get a look at this OWL, just for a little while to see what it's like? I mean, this is something to really keep my mind back, bringing it back half a century to where I was going the last time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did. I included this link to this video, and the link has several other videos. You could probably get a trial if you're interested in actually looking at the technology right on this website.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kim. Does anybody want to see the book?
It hasn't gotten any
It's
smaller.
big.
It looks like it's at least as heavy as it used to be.
Okay, that brings us to a technology update.
Mr. Wirt.
Mr. Wirt. As we demonstrate our technology,
Good evening, everybody. Rick Wirt, Director of Technology. And just give me a moment here to get back up on track. That's me. There we go. All right, there we are. All right, so Kim set me up beautifully with the picture's worth 1,000 words. I'm an English major by trade from way back when at Alfred University, and I was challenged to maybe do a few less words and a few more pictures to talk about how we've been using our technology in the district, so here's 5,000 words. These are views of actually what was happening this school year, and you're going to see some familiar pictures because Kim used the same ones I did when we get to Raspberry Pi, but if you look at those pictures, just some things I want to point out to you. Obviously, you can see, there's individual use, there's also kids working together on these these are Chromebooks. We bought the cases, we have the Chromebooks inside them. Down in this picture, you can see these 4 little blocks. This is Google Classroom, and many of our teachers are using Google Classroom to organize their curriculum and organize their students. So this student has these 4 classes, and if they click into that, they can see the assignments, they can see some of the resources, they can see video links, they can submit homework, catch up on homework, participate in chats, all sorts of great things. So this picture is important because it gives you an idea of how the digital environment helps to organize students and curriculum and teachers and teaching and learning. And again, just kids using the technology. The way it all started, the way technology generally starts, is you have to get our staff excited about it and using it. So through BOCES, we've hired we started with 2 tech integrators. This young lady, Michelle Palmieri, was dynamic and amazing, and Pine Plains stole her from us, unfortunately, mid-year. But Julianne Ross Kleinman has been our tech integrator. She's been covering the district for the last few months by herself. And you can see an accounting of their time. This is 340 hours of contact time with teachers. And the way that worked is the teacher would just say, I need to learn more about Google Classroom. They'd go to the website, click on an appointment time, and schedule that time with the tech integrator. Tech integrator showed up at the door and either worked one-on-one, they modeled the lesson for them, they watched the teacher teach a lesson and gave critical feedback, or they co-taught. And it took a lot of different topics up there and a lot of different varieties of training for teachers as well. I think it's probably the best investment we've made as far as really getting the technology used by teachers, because it's right there training, and it's where the teacher needs it to go and taking them from where they are. So in this picture you can see, and thank you, Lauren, for jumping into the picture, these are our district librarians, and they were getting a training on a piece of software and how to use something, and that is Michelle Palmieri teaching them. You can see one of our big screen TVs, and again you can see the kinds of things we devote our time for. And I actually found this very interesting, that coding, and that includes the Raspberry Pis, took up the largest majority of our time. 25% of our time with our tech integrators was about coding, which I think is pretty exciting. It wasn't about, how do I log into the computer? We're far past that with our staff. So the big screen televisions that the Smart Bond helped purchase for us, and again, we have a large interactive, these are not interactive, but large interactive screens in every teaching space throughout the district. Band rooms, classrooms, OT, PT spaces, everywhere. They're really nice, colorful chalkboards, if you will, but it also brings in this real-time data. This connection to the world, videos, interactive chats, lots of great stuff. Even what we're doing with Mike Zagorski right now on that little tiny screen, we could have him up there taking us through a walking tour of Germany if we wanted to. So these big screens have been a nice addition to the classrooms. Largely they are chalkboards, but it's an interactive piece, and the real-time data is pretty essential to what we're doing now. The websites, we've been pushing people to use, this is our traditional website. This is off of our district webpage. This is a Google site, and we've been pushing our teachers to move to Google sites for a number of reasons. They have a little more control over the content, they can do more things. But in both these examples, if you can get to the presentation and look at the text, or even go to these websites, all aboard the bio train is Glenn Berger's site at the high school. And over here, this is Christine Murphy's science site over at the middle school. And each of these pieces, she takes pictures of her class notes from that day, and they get posted on her website. So if a kid missed class, or maybe they missed something during class, they can go to her website and pick that information up that very same evening. Glenn's bio-trained, you can see obviously there's a video resource here. All of these are the topics that he teaches, and if you click on those links, it takes you to more information. So I remember back in the day, I would leave a classroom and completely forgot what the teacher talked about. I had to wait the next day till I could ask for help or call a friend that night. Now, our students have so many more resources available to them because of this web portal. And I know that and again, combined with Google Classroom, there's just so much available to them. You begin to talk about flipped classrooms then, where the kids work on homework during the school day when they can get that one-to-one guidance from the teacher, but they get their lessons and instruction at home when they can learn at their own pace. So there's some really neat things going on around the district with this. What's our web use look like? So google.com, which is where everyone starts and searches and everything else, and this is just May 2018. This is 1 month snapshot of time and the kind of things people are doing, and Google is still tops because that's pretty much where our web pages default to when you open up, so it could be a false piece, but again, searches are pretty big. Kids are looking up curricular topics, they're looking up research topics through Google. YouTube, same idea. Kids are looking at instructional videos, looking up resources, and so on down the line. And the top applications, what kids are using through Chrome. And WeVideo, Loran is very excited about this, so are we. WeVideo is allowing kids to create content, video and audio content, and publish it. I have a really nice example of that, but I can't share it with you because it got to me a little too late, unfortunately. But kids are actually creating book reports now using video. And I do have one example that I will show you as well. So just an example of what kids are using all this technology for. And again, because we give them this one-to-one device, it doesn't just happen in that 35-minute class. It can happen outside the school day as well. So if a kid is a little bit slower or still trudging through something and can't finish in that short amount of time, they can take it home and work on it there. Digital safety, this is a huge concern for all of us in the tech services department because we know that we've given kids access to a very dangerous world in some ways, and we worry about keeping them safe. So a couple things that we do to keep them safe, and again, you can kind of see what this report is just the things we're worried about. So blocked, in 1 month's time, there were 14,009 searches that our filter said, you can't do that. So the kid was actively searching something that our filter said no. Flagged activity, that means our 109,000. Our filter said this might be a concern. A lot of those are false positives. They're not really a major concern. So probably 25% of those are something that are of a real concern. And we get notified daily in tech services, and then we can address each one. And if we see that it really is dangerous, we can block it at that point and nobody else can get to it. And then YouTube videos is just a number. It's not that they were bad videos, but we get these kinds of reports on a daily basis that keep us on top of things. Every kid, before they get the Chromebook, has to complete digital citizenship lessons. And ideally, they're guided by the teachers, but they are also self-paced. And you hope that students are taking them and getting the idea that there's a digital footprint, that nothing you do online is secure, and there's no way to make it confidential, and you can never delete your digital footprint, ever. You're hoping kids realize that and take that to heart as they engage with the internet. We do have a very good filtering system that's called iBoss in district, and it's managed through BOCES. Every public school in Dutchess County uses iBoss. It's pretty robust. It's what, when you try and Google something here on our network, it's what stops you if you shouldn't go there. That manages all in-district devices. When kids take those devices home, those Chromebooks, what's keeping them safe is something called GoGuardian. That is a different filtering mechanism, but it's still filtering for the same kinds of things that we don't want our students exposed to. We do get smart alerts. What that is, if a student is on they're logged into their district account and they try to Google pornography or I want to die or how do I tie a noose, I get an email and I share that with their principals immediately so they can work with the student, hopefully, to address any concerns there might be. And collaboration with principals is key in all of this. As major concerns come up, we do communicate regularly. So, and what I've been saying all the way through with parents is, look, we'll cover it 95% of the way, but that last 5% is you. We can't guarantee you that the kids aren't going to get to something because the internet requires people to police themselves in some ways. Websites have to categorize themselves. If they don't, yeah, a student can get to that. That's part of the lesson. If we bury our heads in the sand and say, well, we just shouldn't give them anything, it's not real world because the kids have phones. They have access to computers at friends' houses. The key is taking these lessons when kids stumble into the dark alleys of the internet and using it as a teachable moment to help them be a little bit safer online. Raspberry Pi, Kim did a great job covering that already. Same picture you saw earlier because James is photogenic. He's an amazing kid. But it really was a great program. Tech Services helped out with that just by helping set up the equipment and making sure everything was running. But really, the IBM people who came in and helped with that, the teachers in district who jumped in on the training, and the kids themselves just made it a phenomenal event. And I know that Haviland really wanted to kind of keep that lab running in that way, and I'm hoping it just keeps expanding. So it is fun. Other ways, again, here's that big TV with a little tiny child. This is an interactive lesson. She's on the board modeling for her classmates, just like she would be if it was a regular marker board. But what's neat about this is the interactivity with the web-based program. And again, this guy over here, this is a coding lesson. These are both coding lessons. These kids are taking these blocks of code, putting together to make something happen on the screen. This is a young, I'm guessing a primary student, and this guy is a middle school, a high school student working on coding. And these are neat, hands-on, interactive ways to do it. So what else are kids doing? These primary kids, this little girl and this little guy, they're creating books. So back in the day, you might have taken a piece of paper, kid drew a picture, wrote a couple words, and you called it a book. Here, they're actually able to get photographs, their own drawings, whatever else, put them in, type some additional words, and create a book that they print out and publish. And it looks really neat and cool. This one is an FDR student. Dave Chakowski shared this with me. It's an Android app available for download if you'd like. It lets you calculate the cost of a pizza based on the size, how much it's going to cost each person, and you can divide it up so that the person who ate 3 slices pays for 3 slices, the person who pays for 1 slice pays for 1 slice, and that kid created that through coding. And then this, the book report, this will just take a second, but this, I believe this is a 4th grade student at Vowett Avenue. Was it 4th?
Yeah, 4th grade.
4th grade. So in order to give a book report on Bunnicula, she created this Wii video. This was Animoto, similar. So she created her own neat little content of a spinning circle of silence that worked 3 minutes ago. I'm not joking, but if it's not going to start, I'll just explain. It's really nice. It's got titles, it's got some really scary music, and it draws you into the book in a way that I read the book Bunnicula and I really liked it, never could. So I know Loran's really excited about this. I know that the librarians are talking about this district-wide, and I think this kind of thing of creating digital content in unique and different ways, that is just not going to work for me because that's embarrassing. I think you're going to see more and more of that as time goes on. So those traditional, research papers will always have a place, but there's ways to look at information maybe a little bit differently that can be a lot of fun for the kids and for those who watch it and grade it, and really create creative, innovative ways to do things. It was cute. All right, let me get back. Where are you? There it is. I really have trouble seeing from this distance. Okay. So that's how we're using the technology in district, and that's not even a comprehensive list because there's so many neat and creative ways that people are using the technology I haven't even touched on. Even to the point of how the track and field team is using the scoreboard now and the video display and all sorts of other great stuff. So next year I hope to dazzle you even further with some of the cooler ways that things are being used. Our smart bond update, again, we have $2.6 million allocated from a state bond. This is money made available to all school districts in the state. Our allocation was 2.6. Prior to my arrival, there were plans put in place for the one-to-one initiative, large screen televisions. So in round 1, we put aside $1.9 million. We spent pretty close to that. And at this point, we're awaiting reimbursement. We just resubmitted the amendment, which will allow us to submit the purchase to get the reimbursement back. It's been a long time coming, but I think the committee did a great work, and I think the facilities and operations department hanging the TVs and my crew just getting everything wired up, we moved as fast as we could. It's just waiting for the state to do its part.
Yeah, just to be clear, the slowdown is on the state end.
It is on the state part, yeah. It took about 10 months from the date our proposal went in to wend its way through each office to final approval till we could start spending the money. And it's been over a year now for us just to start getting the reimbursement piece going.
There's a proposal for them to improve and put a timeline together, so hopefully that'll
It's
work.
kind of painful, to be honest with you. As I mentioned at a previous meeting, our video server, our surveillance video server, is struggling to keep up with the amount of video that we produce each day from our surveillance cameras. So for round 2, we requested roughly $200,000 in order to create a really good future-worthy video server. It's at state review. It came back once for one of those little edits I forgot to capitalize a T kind of thing. It's back at state review. We're just, again, waiting for the word that we can go ahead and purchase this necessary piece of equipment. And as soon as we get the approval, we will. We'll get that in place through Core BTS Cisco, our partner, and just get things where they should be. At least it's about $500,000 left to spend. There is no deadline in spending these funds, according to the state. There's no rush, and that money is really in the hands of the district leadership team at this point. Okay. And quick snapshot. So what did we do? It's over 4,000 work orders since July, which is staggering if you think about a team that was really 3 people for a couple months. We're now at 5 technicians, myself and a secretary. And each one of those work orders could be a 5-minute thing where you had to, give somebody an account, up to the television thing, which took months. So it's an amazing amount of work, and those people on that bottom screen, including Roger, who's right here, they're amazing. They're literally nothing short of amazing, and we are lucky to have each and every single one of them. Without them, the lights are on, the computers are working, the network's working. It wouldn't happen without them. We installed 300 interactive screens in collaboration with F&O. The 2,880 Chromebooks we received from Dell all came with defective touchscreens. It was their problem. It took a couple months until they believed us, but they did believe us finally in November. And finally by January, they sent us 2 technicians, then 3 technicians, and 4 technicians who did nothing but replace defective Chromebook screens. We actually had to wrest them back, the Chromebooks from the students, replace each screen and give them back to the students. So it was another monumental undertaking. It just can't speak enough about my staff, the library staff throughout the district. Everybody helped with that. We upgraded networking at Haviland, Violet Avenue, North Park, and transportation. The transportation people in particular are thrilled. It used to be a wireless bridge between Ralph R. Smith and transportation. It's now a fiber optic connection. And Donna Oles says she actually got to go home earlier than 7 o'clock the other night because her work was able to get done that much faster. The networking upgrades, by the way, are allowing us to do some future thinking, where our PA systems are all original to buildings, and because of where we put the network ports, we can go to an IP PA system, that means over the network, along with the digital display that could say things like lockdown, lunch starting in 5 minutes. A lot of neat possibilities because of the way we set the networking piece up. We upgraded the auditorium at FDR, Ralph R. Smith and North Park Elementary. They were fairly low-cost projects, but I think you will be pleased with the sound when you walk into those spaces. I know that Melissa Lawson said it was great because she walked to her auditorium, flipped a switch, and she was presenting in under 30 seconds. Whereas before it was drag out the projector, put this here, put that there. When you walk into FDR, you will be able to plug in a laptop to a port. The screen will drop, the projector will come on, and you'll present without having to flip any buttons at all. So it's a pretty slick system. What's coming up? The Haviland Auditorium is next. Also Violet Avenue. We're going to look at their cafeteria, gymatorium thing, whatever we call that, right? That is the one building that really hasn't gotten, Haviland and Violet Avenue, the 2 buildings that haven't had work yet in the AV area.
I'm sure
So they're my
Deanna
next
wants
2.
to see that BAS right next to the HE.
I know, I forgot to put it up there, but they are next. Gyms scare me, I'll be honest. Gymnasiums scare me with technology stuff. I got to find a way to cage it. Networking closets, we have the equipment. What that means is instead of having our equipment bake in 95, 100-degree buildings over the summer, they'll be in very small air-conditioned closets, which will protect our equipment, hopefully last a little bit longer. We have a required Cisco phone system upgrade. We are still purging our obsolete equipment, and by obsolete, I do mean older than 10 years, just like a textbook. So we literally do have technology that, it's Windows 98 or 27 or whatever it may be. So we're slowly getting rid of stuff, and we're still working on an inventory management system. That's Michelle Besnier, our incredible secretary, is responsible for that. That's what we're up to. Any questions?
What do you do in your spare time?
Just a comment, it's sort of coincidental. I was talking to somebody earlier this week that had filled out an application for a grant. And the requirement of the grant was that in addition to answering certain questions by a file, 1,000 characters or less, the final requirement was to encapsulate the entire presentation of the entire project that they were looking for as a video. So what you're doing here in school is actually going out in the real world too at the same time.
I think that's absolutely true.
That's I guess what you call being current.
Yeah. Yeah, we want to give our kids the tools to succeed, and I think the We Video piece, where kids are creating content, websites too, but video content is going to be key to them being successful. I think the old days of typing a 10-page report may be slowly receding into the sunset. We'll see. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Not about this, because I think it's just great, and I understand so little of it sometimes, but just a practical question. I was asked and didn't have the answer. How are students going to go about returning their Chromebooks at the end of the year? Can you just give us
So fun. We started that today.
Oh.
Yeah, we just started that today. And Roger's really laughing over here because he, So the elementary, they're on carts, so that's easy. We just hope they go back in the carts. We'll inventory them over the summer, make sure everything's up to date. At Haviland, they're collecting by homeroom. So on the 14th and 15th, Mr. Shaw has done an incredible job organizing this. I just went, Eric, and he went, got it, and he took care of it. So he's got the homerooms coming down on specific times. They're handing them to the library staff. Somebody from my staff will be there. We'll scan the barcodes, check off the kid, return the computer, the case, and the charger, and send them on their merry way. If we're missing stuff, we send letters home to the families saying, where's our stuff? And we'll go from there. Clean it up over the summer and then redistribute it in the fall based on our process. At the high school, it's a little different because, and this is a happy problem. I was really annoyed by it at first because I wanted to say, this homeroom come down this day and give me your Chromebook. But they're using them for Regents prep. They're using them for papers, using them for research, so we didn't want to take the Chromebooks out of kids' hands if they're using them to get ready for a Regents exam. So it's a little more nerve-wracking for me, but again, it's a happy problem. And that is, it's just, when you take your last exam, please give us back our Chromebook. So we had 71 turned in today.
Where are they turning them in?
They go to the library.
Oh, okay.
We have staff there. The library staff is Tracy Ainsley and Nancy Halton are helping us out. Roger's helping us out. Everyone's helping us out. Okay. Kids come in, same thing, Chromebook, charger case, check things off, send you your merry way. If we're missing stuff, we'll send letters home. Regardless, on June 22nd, every Chromebook will then go to a screen that says, please return me to the school, and that's all it will do. So all the screens become inoperable June 22nd until we get them back.
That's fancy.
Yeah, it's called kiosk mode. It's really simple to do, and kids will say, I can do developer mode and get around it, but for the most part, they won't be able to. I just know I issued a challenge, but I know, and I'm going to regret that, but yeah.
One of those hackers.
All right, thank
Can
you.
you mute that comment?
Yeah, please.
So speaking of which, at one time you had numbers on how often kids were trying to circumvent the safeties and hack the Chromebooks, use them for other purposes.
Yeah.
What's that look like on an annual basis?
Yeah. The number of hacker attempts, if you will, trying to circumvent has decreased, but the ones who are still trying are getting very creative. And when they disappear, so what will happen is a teacher will notice they're no longer on GoGuardian, or a teacher will notice that this one's been able to get someplace, or we'll notice that this kid who was popping up a lot is no longer popping up. Plus, we have stuff in place that we can kind of monitor if keywords are coming up in searches. That kid's name will pop up and kind of track their activity. But there was one guy who really got very creative on us, and it took us better part of 2 days to figure out what he did. And again, working with building administration, there was a consequence for the child. That was rather twofold. It was a technology consequence and a building consequence. Parents were on board with us because they recognized the danger of what the child was doing, and it really was a misuse of technology. So as we become aware of these things, we're addressing them. I think the overall number is decreasing because for the average guy like myself, I can Google how to hack my school Chromebook, and you watch 3 videos and realize you can't, so you just stop. But there's a few kids who are very persistent and do find very creative ways of doing it. In the end, what happens is that they either irreparably damage the Chromebook, and now they owe me $300, or you $300, or they get around it, but we know that they're around it because they're not showing up anymore. So in the end, it doesn't work for them, I think, the way they want it to.
If this were the U.S. government, we would try to hire those kids.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Well, again, so the one guy who really impressed me, he's a middle school kid too, a little guy, right? Netherwood. But he really was impressed, and we had a nice long conversation about how he did this, because in some ways it really was very impressive. It really was what he did. It was out of the box thinking. And there's a part of us, Bobby Califano is our networking god. back in the office. He's Cisco certified, he's everything. And he was scratching his head. And when we met this kid and we talked about it, Bobby was like, that kid's going to go far if he stays on the right path. It's all about using your powers for good, not for
Either
evil.
going to go to prison or he's going to be a CEO.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Wait, I have a quick comment on like the block stuff. Not all of the numbers that are blocked are necessarily like kids doing bad things. Like sometimes we'll go to like watch a CBS 60 Minutes video in economics and it's blocked.
Yeah.
sure.
So,
Yeah.
not all those numbers are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes, because content filtering is based on keywords, so if it's, and current events is a tough one, because sometimes they're about really heavy-duty things, and that word gets blocked. And oftentimes, like in that case, the CBS News, there's also paid content. And we can't pay for every single service that's out there like some folks would like us to do. So sometimes a teacher will want to go to cbsnews.com, and that's all paid content. So it's a tough one. It really is, because you want to strike that balance between access and keeping people safe and also being fiscally responsible. So it's a good point. It's a tough one to manage.
Are we bringing more Chromebooks online next year?
Everybody's got one, no? It's-
Wow, I don't know where else we'd put them. So honestly, every staff member has a Chromebook. Every 6th through 12th grade student has a Chromebook, and then we have carts K-5. I know some elementary staff want to have a cart per classroom. Right now, we're at least a cart per grade level plus one for the library.
And we have no more than 3 classrooms at a grade level, just for a point of reference.
Right. So
Most places, just 2 classes.
Yeah.
Although a couple of North Park have one.
Yeah. And it's interesting, too, because at one building, they're actually having a problem with the carts being in the hallway, which is a typical place to store them, and kids tripping over them, and where do you put these things? So we've I feel almost like we've reached this density almost of, we got enough. Because in addition to the one-to-one Chromebooks in the secondary, we also have classroom spares. There's at least 5 to 10 spares in every, thank you, Roger, 5 to 10 spares in every classroom, so if a kid forgets a Chromebook, they can use one of the spares for that period. So I almost feel like we're at a critical mass, but my mind can be changed, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm not advocating, I just I lost track of it.
Yeah,
So,
no, I feel like we're full.
Good, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that I've been advocating for on various levels for, what, 10 years, 5 years?
Been
Yeah.
super
And-
instrumental in
So-
getting to where we are.
Yeah, so that's really exciting.
We also have I have it planned out for 5 years, all of our networking projects and our Chromebook replacement cycle, just to be safe. I went on the high side, to be honest with you. I don't think we need to buy 500 right now for the coming fall. I think we have enough in stock at this point, which is great. But my plan is that we don't run out as long as we want to continue this initiative.
So, funny you mentioned replacement cycle, because that's the next question on my list. What is your replacement cycle plan?
We figure 500 based on breakage, just wearing out after time. Now, we bought a whole bunch, 3,000, in just last year, so I don't expect 500 to die, but the lifespan of these things is 3 years generally, 4 years you're pushing it. Some of our Asus Chromebooks are going on 6 years right now, and there's a lot of, those are our classroom spares. The batteries are dead, but they still work plugged in. So we budgeted 500 a year, but I already know I don't need to buy 500 next year. So I know that the following year, I'll probably need to buy close to that just based on breakage and loss, if you will. This is also a learning year. So this experiment at the high school of collecting Chromebooks as kids finish tests is, like I said, terrifying to me from a management standpoint. I don't know what percentage I'm going to get back. You hope for 100%. Wouldn't that be wonderful? We have 15 right now that we're tracking as lost or stolen. We don't know where they are.
Well, that's still a pretty low percentage if that's...
As of right now, 15 units, not 15%.
Sure.
So when we finish the collection, I can certainly let everyone know what the percentage was. I'm optimistic. We'll see.
So that's a sustainable replacement cycle, we think? 500
From a
units a
technology
year?
side, yes. Yeah.
Yep, good, good, that's really encouraging. The audio system at FDR, did that include a purchase of wireless mics?
It did.
How many?
It did. 8. I'm so excited about this project. I'm sorry. I'm an old theater tech guy, and honestly, when I saw that we're renting a great service, Valentine's phenomenal, but I look at that and I keep thinking kids should be doing this. This is a school, we're here to teach, and if they should be running the sound system.
Absolutely.
But we don't because we don't have the equipment. That drives me crazy. So I bought 8 really good, high-quality wireless mics that are now in a rack. They're fixed in that system. They can't travel around the district. In addition, you've got another 14 that are in racks that can move between Haviland and FDR. So they really can run their own show now. They have a state-of-the-art soundboard that is stunning, to say the least. And Anthony Sava, who's a great kid who knows sound systems, he's already on top of it. Matter of fact, he's going to do North Park's Moving Up Day with the sound systems. So yes, the system actually is pretty cool. It comes with 2 wireless mics. It's a handheld and a body pack mic that when Greer walks in, needs to do a presentation, she turns the mic on and she's going. And she can walk out in the audience, there will be no feedback because it's all digital signal processing. The 8 mics up on the rack, in addition to the 2 cubes that we have, are run through the soundboard, and that's for a show. So.
Great.
Yeah.
Great. So, just wanted to say that you've done a great job from my perspective. You came up to speed very quickly. You've managed the growth in a way that I would not have anticipated.
Thank you.
So, kudos to you and your staff.
Thank
Nice
you, Steve.
job.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Thank you, Rick.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
That's right.
I'll bring this to Linda and the fund balance.
Fun?
Fund.
Fun balance.
Yeah, sometimes fun, sometimes it's a horror show. But, you know.
So the reason that we're having this presentation tonight is that we are required by New York State to have a fund balance reserve plan by June 30th, and that plan must be on our website. In board docs, under the administrative content, is a draft reserve plan. If the board is agreeable with it, we'll have that on our next agenda for approval. But I didn't want to just add the plan to the agenda without going over it. Okay, so quite often when we talk about fund balance, most people I talk to, they think that fund balance is that unassigned portion that's limited to 4% of the next year's budget. But fund balance is really everything that's our equity. It's the difference between assets and liabilities. Every year, we report fund balance on June 30th. So when we have a year where revenues are greater than expenses, our fund balance increases. And when we have a year where expenditures are higher than revenues, our fund balance will decrease. Yes, I have sound. So GASB is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board, and it's the highest source of generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP, for state and local governments, including public school districts. In 2009, GASB issued their statement number 54, which went into effect in the 2010-11 school year. The objective is to enhance the usefulness of fund balance for its users. It just changed the way that we classify fund balance. So all of the classifications that a school district could use are listed here. They're non-spendable. For our district, the non-spendable fund balance amounts are the amounts that for expenses that we prepay in one year for the next year. The biggest example of that is health insurance. So our health insurance for July, which is the first year of the first month of our new fiscal year, is due on June 20th. So when we pay that bill, we have to classify the amount as non-spendable fund balance, because it shouldn't really come from this year's fund balance. We have to carry it over to next year to take it from next year's fund balance. The restricted fund balances are our reserves. I have more detail on that later on. Committed fund balance is usually not used by school districts. For fund balance to be considered committed, the Board of Education itself would have to decide that a certain part of our fund balance would be used probably in the following year for a specific purpose. Now, every year the board does assign a certain amount of our fund balance to the next year's tax levy, but that's a little more general, so that's why it's not considered committed, because we don't say that it's to purchase a certain thing, but just to help alleviate the tax burden on the taxpayers in the following year. And then anything that's not classified as either non-spendable, restricted, committed, or assigned is our unassigned fund balance. And that's the amount that's limited to 4% of the next year's budget. And we can use it for anything, for any purpose in the general fund. So I have 2 slides showing fund balance history. I'm not going to go through it in detail, other than to say I really wanted to show how fund balance has changed for the district since 2005. So in 2005, the total fund balance was less than $1 million. There was no reserves, and unassigned fund balance was less than 1/10% of the following year's budget. In the very next year, in 2006, fund balance grew by over 200%, but we still had no reserves. The reserves were not established until 2008. And another interesting part of this slide, if you could see about halfway through the slide where it shows the total of the different fund balance categories, so that's the total fund balance overall, you can see that for most years it's increasing every year. But between 2010 and 2011, we did have a decrease. The board might remember that in 2010, that was the year that the state cut state aid because of the economic crisis that started in 2008. So that was the year that many school districts were laying off staff and cutting programs. And we did, luckily at that time, did have some fund balance to avoid some of that. So this slide just shows the more recent years for fund balance history. The last column is what I estimate our fund balance will be on June 30th. We can see overall we are increasing fund balance slightly from June 30th, 2017. But if you look at the bottom, the portion that's unassigned is 2.12% of next year's budget, whereas at June 30th, 2017, it was 2.27%. And also on this slide, the third row down are the restricted fund balance amounts. Those are the amounts that we have in reserves. So the reason that we have the $14.7 million now is because we have $7 million in capital reserve. Okay. So I also have a few pages here, a few slides of the reserves that we actually have in the district. The reserve for encumbrances is actually used for an accounting purpose. On June 30th, we have to reserve all of the amounts that we have for outstanding purchase orders. So there are outstanding encumbrances. That's basically something that we purchase in June, but we don't get delivered. We don't take delivery until after July 1st. Because we're self-insured for workers' compensation, we actually belong to the Dutchess County Workers' Comp Co-op. We're allowed to reserve some funds to help pay for the cost of that. There is a recommendation that'll be on the next agenda to actually dissolve this reserve, because for the first time in many years, the Workers' Comp Co-op is operating positively, and our auditors have recommended that we eliminate this reserve because we don't have a large liability anymore. And the unemployment insurance reserve, that would be used in years that we have a large amount of people collecting money for unemployment. We don't typically lay off people, so we don't have that issue. We spend less than $15,000 a year in unemployment, so we haven't been using the reserve, but the money's there if we do need it. So the Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund is used to offset payments to ERS. That's the pension system for the local employees' retirement. So it's the non-certified staff. We can't use the Retirement Contribution Reserve Fund for teachers' pensions. I'm not really sure why. This comes up every year at the state level. It's never been approved, even though some of the legislators are asking for it. And then the tax cert reserve, we actually have 4 of those. Every year, we establish a new reserve, and we ask the board to fund it. we're allowed to fund the tax cert reserve up to 100% of the potential judgments that we have, but we usually use 80% as our number because that seems to be what the reserves actually, or the judgments actually come through for. So we can only keep the tax cert reserves for 4 years. So at the same time that we're establishing and creating a new reserve, we're also eliminating another one. And the Employee Benefit Accrued Liability Reserve, people refer to it as EBLR. This reserve is used to make payments for compensated absences, which is usually sick time and vacation time that's paid to people when they retire. We do have some bargaining units that are allowed to buy back their vacation payout or their vacation time. So if those payouts, coupled with the payouts that we make to retirees ever exceed the budget, then we could use this fund to make up the difference. We wouldn't have to take the money from elsewhere. The repair reserve is really difficult to use. In order to use it, we would either have to have voter approval, or the board would have to declare an emergency. If the board declared an emergency, we would have to pay the funds back within 2 years. And finally, the capital reserve, I think we're all familiar with that. The capital reserve has to be established by the voter approval, and when we go to use the money, we have to get voter approval again. So when we had the vote in May, we asked the voters to use a portion of that towards the capital project. And that's why we had it on there, because they have to say that it's okay that we use the money. Okay. So these are just the last 4 years worth of the reserves. If you look at the fund balance charts that were at the beginning of the presentation, you would find the totals here listed in the row that says reserves. So like I said, we have the workers' comp, unemployment, retiree contributions, the tax cert, the EBLR reserve, repairs, and capital expenditures. The amount in the last column is projected, what we'll have on June 30th. Even though June 30th is coming soon, it doesn't really end for us until August after the auditors are done. Occasionally they make adjustments for us, so this may change slightly. And on the next presentation, there will be some recommendations. There'll be quite a few resolutions. The first will be to adopt the 2017-18 fund balance plan. I will have that updated every year, and every year the board will have to approve it, and we'll have to put the updated plan on the website. I'll also recommend that we close the workers' comp reserve. Like I said earlier, we have a positive, we're operating in the positive for the workers' comp co-op, so we don't really have any reason to have money in the reserve, and we wouldn't be able to justify it if we left the money there. Auditors, so the state auditors actually criticize school districts that don't use money from the retirement contribution reserve. I never felt that we should be using it because the ERS rates have not increased like the TRS rates have. So I've always felt if the rates were decreasing, we shouldn't be using the ERS reserve, but our external and internal auditors have both recommended that we do. So part of the fund balance appropriation in the budget considered applying $250,000 from the retirement contribution reserve to next year. So it won't increase, that amount and the amount from the workers' comp reserve won't increase our overall appropriation. It's just part of what we're recommending to appropriate next year. Because it's more than 4 years old, the 2013-14 tax cert reserve must be closed out. We only have $14,000 left in that reserve. It'll be moved to unclassified fund balance. Then we'll recommend that we establish the 17-18 tax cert reserve. The $398,000 is 80% of what we show right now in the books that we could pay out if all the judgments come through. And then the last recommendation, this is as per the board's policy. This was a recommendation from our internal auditor a few years ago that we always add this resolution to the agenda before June 30th. It gives the board the ability to make a change in fund balance after June 30th, but before we set the tax levy. And the reason for this is that the auditors might find something that, that we've done that they don't agree with, or they might suggest that we add more to our reserves or take money out of them. So the board has to have the authority to do that. And this is the one statement or a couple of paragraphs that are actually in the fund balance reserve plan. I think it's important to point out that the school district and the board's policy 3143 recognizes the purpose or the importance of saving money in reserves just to ensure that we have sufficient funds to cover any emergencies or any other unforeseen events that could happen. So, I think that's all I have. So this is, yeah. So this is the first time I've ever presented the fund balance and reserve, so we've never had a conversation. So I'd love to answer questions.
Are there any questions from the board? I think it's pretty complete. I mean, it's the categories and what that get confusing, but we are in compliance.
Yes.
So we're in good shape. That's the whole comment I want to make.
And then this requirement to do this annually this way creates a great level of transparency.
Yeah.
So thank you for all the work you put into it.
Sure. So in addition to once the plan is adopted, we'll put this presentation on the agenda or on the website too, because I think sometimes people like to review the presentations rather than read the documents that we have on there. And I just want to add one more thing. I think if we're going to continue to work with our financial advisor to look at the long-range planning, we should talk about the reserves when we meet with him at that time.
Okay.
We'll have to talk about it again at the end of the year like we are now, but I think it's always a good idea to really look at the reserves when we're doing that long-range planning. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Linda.
At this time, may I have a motion to enter public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Thanks, Mike.
He's still awake.
We thought you'd be 3 beers down by now, I'll tell you the truth, but you're in Germany after all.
It's 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
6 hours ahead.
If anybody would like to address the board, please step up to the mic, tell us who you are.
I made very brief comments to the last board meeting. I thought about them later and said, some of the board members are new, don't know where I'm coming from, and I want to add a couple of thoughts. I've been in the Hyde Park district for 9 years. I came here from eastern Pennsylvania, where it was much cheaper to live, including taxes. So I've been here for 5 years. Every year I've paid a larger school tax. I've been retired for close to 20 years now. I'm on a fixed income, as I'm sure a number of people in this town are. I've got to tell you, the most unpleasant duty you have is to figure out some way where you can stop increasing expenses. You have a declining, slowly declining, but declining school enrollment over the last 5 years at least, I think, maybe longer than that. And you keep increasing your expenses by a modest amount, granted, but every year increasing them. You can't go on like this. New York State has the highest by far expenditures for school, for its schools. I would look for, there's been I won't show it, there's been an ad in the paper from one of the Catholic high schools recently showing relative rankings according to SAT numbers of schools in the area. We're not even on there. They go from the top down. We didn't make the first 40 schools. Why? Then, if we're teaching our kids to be better, and we listened to some stuff tonight that says we're working on it, that's good. But if we're not raising the level of education of school students in Hyde Park, then we ought to look at that too. But you've got to stop increasing expenses, because some of us just can't afford it. Thank you.
Anybody else like to address the board? Doug, never.
I have to just say that I was really impressed with all the technology reporting that was going on tonight, but that's not why I'm here. So, my name is Ellen Woods, and I am a resident of the Hyde Park School District. In early April, I sent an email to the administration and those presently serving on the Board of Education of our school district. I thought I would hear something back, either an opinion on my thoughts or perhaps an acknowledgement of my concerns. However, be it due to my aging computer or my computer skills, or perhaps the existing protocol that is in place regarding emails received, I did not receive a response, and I have concern that perhaps my letter didn't really get to the intended audience. That being said, I would like to take a few minutes and just publicly read an excerpt from my letter that I sent. I would like to express my concern about the class sizes that presently exist in our elementary classrooms, especially those existing in the kindergarten classes in Netherwood Elementary. Thomas Jefferson once said, "I'm not an advocate for frequent changes in laws and constitutions, but laws and institutions must go hand in hand with the progress of the human mind." As that becomes more developed, more enlightened, as new discoveries are made and new truths discovered, and manners and opinions change, with the changes of circumstances, institutions must advance to keep pace with the times. Now, I know Thomas Jefferson wasn't talking about the Hyde Park School District, nor was he talking about oversized classrooms. But his thoughts still apply to us today as much as they did to the country back then. Taxpayers' dollars are very important, but so are our children. Oversized classrooms do not provide a conducive environment for addressing the emotional, academic, and social needs of the children of today. Our teachers have so many voices surrounding them every day. All of our children have a story to tell. They have needs and strengths and areas that need to be addressed on a daily basis. We need to address the academic, social, and emotional development of all of our children. We need them to become contributing members of society. We need them to feel wanted, to be heard, and to be safe. This is nearly impossible in a classroom of close to 30 children. Let's change our practice of large class sizes. Let's acknowledge that the children of today, that our children and society has changed. Please give serious consideration to reducing the number of students in our elementary classrooms. And please consider adding an additional section for the years to come for the students presently enrolled in the kindergarten classes at Netherwood Elementary. Please give all our children a chance to be heard, to be safe, and to feel that they are contributing to the world around them. Sincerely, Ellen L. Woods. I am still concerned about the overcrowded classes that exist in many of our classrooms. And through the grapevine, I have been led to believe, I'm not sure if this is true or not, that not only are we not adding any additional sections to where they are desperately needed, but that there has been a reduction in the applauded support staff that presently exists in these congested, overwhelming settings that we as a school district are offering our children. Please reconsider addressing this unfortunate occurrence. I commend the wonderful job our teachers are doing, but it's impossible for them to address the basic needs of so many children. I thank you for your time and for giving me an opportunity to speak.
Good evening, my name is Tim Daniels. I've been a proud member of the Hyde Park Central School District for 20 years now. I currently teach 5th grade at VAS. I've also been the Public Relations Director for the Hyde Park Teachers Association for 6 years. Each year, the HPTA organizes a golf outing fundraiser. 100% of the proceeds from this fundraiser benefit the 3 public libraries that support our students and their families. Over the past 5 years, our outing has raised approximately $23,000 for the Clinton, Hyde Park, and Statsburg libraries. Monies from the golf outing are raised from sponsorship, registration fees, and raffles. Although the HPTA organizes the fundraiser, teaching our children is truly a group effort. We wanted to include all the staff in the Hyde Park Central School District This year, I reached out to Greer and all the unions within our district to help assist us in our fundraising efforts. I'm proud to say that so far the HPUEA, the HPTA, and the HPAA have all committed to supporting our library fundraiser with items we can use as raffles. Elliot has even said that possibly the CSEA is still considering supporting us. In the past, we have sponsored 4 golfers from Franklin Delano Roosevelt High School. Unfortunately, the monies used to sponsor these golfers is taken from the profits. Last year, registration was low in our golf outing, and we were unable to use any additional funds to sponsor these golfers. As you can imagine, they were disappointed that they could not participate in the tournament. A few weeks ago, I sent Doug an idea, and I asked if the Board of Education would consider supporting this fundraiser by sponsoring a group of FDR golfers, 4 FDR golfers, to play in our tournament. The cost would be $500 for these athletes to play golf, enjoy breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and have a chance at some prizes. What better individuals to represent the Hyde Park Central School District? I think including the Board of Education, as well as all the unions in this fundraiser, is a great way to show the solidarity of our district and its commitment to our community. So thank you for considering sponsoring the FDR golfers and supporting the Links for Literacy fundraiser.
Would anybody else like to address the board? May I have a motion to return to public session, please?
So moved. Second.
You got them?
Yes, thank you.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Well, I had things I would say to Mr. Eggleton, but he left, so we'll do that. In terms of Netherwood, the Netherwood class, if you sent me an email, I'm either forgot to respond. I have been responding to other people that think, but thank you for coming tonight. We did discuss it, the situation, not just at Netherwood, but in all the elementary schools. And I did ask for a report on on how much it would cost to do not just Netherwood, but all the other. I mean, if you just do it for Netherwood and Valley Avenue has a class and North Park has a class. So in fairness, I did ask for that. Initial the amount of money came in was a considerable sum. But I'll let if you want to talk anything about Netherwood in particular.
Yeah, I know it's okay to say, I'm sorry, Mike, I'm going to put this back in a minute if you want to talk, that just like last summer when we added a teaching assistant to one kindergarten class at Netherwood and to a first grade class at Violet Avenue, because there were 30 students in those classrooms with no additional staff. It was in the co-teaching environments, there's 2 adults all day, but these were just 1 teacher, 30 students, 1 in kindergarten and 1 in first grade. So we, made that decision. You all supported it, and that's been in place this year, and the feedback is really good, obviously, from the teachers who, much better to have a 1-to-15 ratio than a 1-to-30 ratio. So what Dr. Rychek and I talked about is really revisiting that 1 kindergarten class in the middle of the summer, because the enrollments dropped a little bit, but we would need it to drop a little more before we think about removing that support for next year. And if not, we would like to keep it there. So that's really where we're at. And I looked at all the other kindergartens, and they're not that big. So everyone who's currently in kindergarten and going into first, they're really reasonable class sizes. So that is the 1 class that it's by itself in the district at the moment of current kindergarten. And then the incoming kindergarten we'll look at as well to see what those sizes end up looking like in the middle of the summer. And usually we pick August 1st as a date because there's a lot of change coming and going. But we also want enough time to make adjustments in class lists. So we'll get back to you.
We acknowledge that we understand the request is to add sections, not add support in the classroom, but that is not what's proposed. The proposal and the practice has been to add the support into the classroom to reduce the adult-to-child ratio.
Can I say something?
Okay, the way this works is you talk, then we talk, but there is a second. Tim, I have to apologize. I did not bring that up to the board members. I was a little reluctant because of the cost. I think some of us could afford that. I think others couldn't, but I do apologize, excuse me, for not at least bringing it up. So we will, this is for the fall, right?
Yes.
So we will consider it.
I just, since Tim is here tonight, I know we usually give a shout out during all of the various fundraisers, but Tim and I know there's another teacher involved now who's partnering with you on this, Chwinski, Kathy Chwinski. But just since you're here, I'd like to publicly thank you for all of that you do, not only as a teaching staff and a unit, but the fundraising you do that raises scholarship money for students, the blood drives that you do that don't increase donations for students, but teach them a lifelong lesson. And you've been instrumental in all of these initiatives, the scholarship fund drive, the book fair, the blood drive. So since you're here, I'd like to publicly thank you for all you do. And we're excited to support the in the way that we can here at district office, the golf tournament. So thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Mr. Eglinton's comments about taxes. I have friends and family in Hyde Park who are on fixed incomes, and I have great sympathy and empathy for them. It's a difficult situation. On the other hand, I have friends and family who have children in our schools and anticipate having children in our schools. And I also know a lot of homeowners in the district. It's a tough balancing act trying to provide a quality public school system in this fiscal environment and this social environment. So to try to reduce the tax burden, I consider nearly impossible in this context. Reducing the tax burden instead of simply controlling growth would require massive cuts to either the medical health care for our employees, or it would require us to try to impose draconian cuts in pay to our staff, which I think is also a sure way to reduce the effectiveness of our school system. So it's a really tough balancing act, and I think the best that anyone can reasonably expect us to do is control the rate of tax growth. It's simply a fact of life that medical care increases in double-digit growth every year, and that's one of the top 3 increasing costs for us each year. I would like to see education in New York State funded in a different way. I think it should be attached to income in some way. I think that a system of funding education that goes back to our agrarian roots is a little outdated. So while I agree with Mr. Eglinton? Doug? Eglinton. Yeah. Sorry, Doug. While I agree with him that it would be great if we could do something, in good conscience, balancing that need against the education need of our children, the ongoing, the idea that quality school system has an impact on property values, I think that we've struck the right balance. As far as the performance of our schools, I would match our top 10% against the top 10% at any school in the state. When you start talking averages, then you're really getting into socioeconomic issues that, again, we cannot control. So I think we have a high-quality school district, even though the statistics don't necessarily bear that out. And I don't think that we should try to cut our cost structure significantly. I think we should look for ways to save money, and I think that we succeed every day in doing so. We're very, very careful about what we spend money on and who we hired for that reason. That's kind of a rambling response, but it's my last chance to say it.
I would like to comment on his first comment about the advertisement that's been in the paper. Nowhere in that advertisement have I seen any indication that that was the top of a complete list.
Yeah.
In other words, the fact we're not on the list doesn't mean that we're below the bottom school district in that list. I believe what it means simply is that they either did not request the information for us or was not available for them to place in the list. I would like that to be checked out possibly for the next board meeting, just indicate where we sit on the list to.
It's at Poughkeepsie Journal.
Today?
Yeah. It's a full-page ad. It's usually on the back of the sports section, as I remember right. I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have not even opened the
Yeah.
paper today.
I would have called it a representative list to make them look good. I mean, they want.
I thought that, then I looked at all the schools. There were a lot of, schools in there that are, valid. I just figured that.
Yeah.
It's more the fact that they couldn't get our numbers or they didn't request them.
Okay.
Can't get it, I'll take one out of it.
Moving on to the
Thank you.
physical education exemption program. We said we'd make at least we discuss and perhaps make a decision on whether to keep the program as it is this year, only offered to seniors, or to roll out the juniors per the original plan. And we did say during the I think the facts were that so few people actually enrolled that this particular year that at least I felt that perhaps another year would be better. So that's only my opinion. So I know, Denise, you support the
I absolutely do.
to go to the 11th grade.
Are you ready for me to give you mine?
You can, yeah. This is your moment.
I thank you for waiting to discuss this until I could be here. A couple of things is, one, I don't think it matters how many students participated in it this year. I don't think that really shows how well it worked or how well it didn't work. I think if it helped one student, then it was beneficial. I think we offered it as a rollout. We talked about it last year. We offered it as a rollout for seniors this year, and then next year for seniors and juniors. So I think there is an expectation. I think any program like this takes a while for the benefits to accumulate, for people to get used to, it's a brand new concept for all of our students to rethink the way they can structure their classes and how they can do it. I think the most important year is the junior year. I think that's where our athletes and our students need it the most. Their junior years are jam-packed with all kinds of academic requirements, and I'm just all for it. I think we can do it better because we've learned a little bit. I think every year, things need to get tweaked, but I don't see why the fact that so few students participated this year has an impact.
That was only one reason, actually. The other reason I felt, me, not the rest of the board, was that we have a new athletic director who is not invested, shall we say, in the original program. It wasn't defined by him, and I thought he should have this year, this current year, as a guide, but not necessarily to move if he didn't feel that's what he wanted to do. And he said he did not feel that he wanted to to go from seniors only to seniors and juniors. This is what he presented. So, I'm probably the only one, but I agreed with him on that. So I'd like to hear what everybody else has to say, and if we need, so there's no vote, and this is just a...
I'm not sure it's a voting item. It's not a vote.
It's not a voting.
No, it's not a vote.
Well, we have to have a recommendation. I mean, if the board's going to debate it, then there's going to have to be at least 4 people who say, go this way or go that way.
Right, but it's not something that requires, an official poll vote.
Right.
But, yeah, you do, we are looking for...
Who's going to make the decision?
I think the board, but I mean,
Okay.
I don't think it needs to be a recorded vote per se. I mean, we came here to present it to the public and the Board of
Okay.
Education. So, yeah, in that sense, we do want to vote.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
yes.
Okay.
But I mean, not one of those ones where you have to check it off.
Oh, yeah. No, that's fine. But that's the point of the discussion, is to
Yes.
get everybody's opinion.
Right.
So
Exactly.
I would like everybody to give their opinion, and we could do it.
So, this is Mike, hopefully.
Go ahead, Mike.
I've always thought from the beginning that it should include juniors, because I agree with Denise, that is the more difficult year in my opinion. So from the beginning of this program, I thought it should include juniors. So I think going forward, I think it should include juniors as well.
Okay.
And I also have to agree with Denise and Mike. I do believe the junior
Okay.
year is the toughest year. At least it was for my children, so.
Okay.
I'd like to point out that there were 2 items presented to us as mitigating circumstances in the number of people participating. Just to remind people who may not have heard them. One was the badminton tournament. For those of you that, and I didn't know about it, there's a badminton tournament held every year, and it's become a sort of a premier event for the senior class.
Then it's
They
been
compete.
for decades. It's
They
been it's a big deal.
My kids have been out of school for multiple decades, so it may not have even been in vogue when I was there. But the ruling coming into this year was if you weren't taking a physical ed class in the quarter where the tournament was held, you weren't eligible to participate. So we're being informed that there were several students that didn't participate so that they could play badminton.
That was a misunderstanding. There wasn't a ruling. Students were under the impression that they couldn't participate in the badminton
Well, I
tournament.
had to come from somebody making a statement at some
Well,
point.
and I think that that's something that we also could work on. I think
Right,
the
well,
message has
they've
to be
already-
made,
yeah.
right, that the
Yeah, we
message has
fixed
to be
that.
made
Yep.
clear that this is
Yeah,
something.
that was, I think that was going to be done. The second thing was that the students found that, when they found out that they had to report to their physical education classroom to sign in for that period and then go to the study hall, created some issues in terms of, I didn't get as much time out of it as I wanted to and stuff like that. So there were 2 things to be addressed, but I'm surprised and disappointed that we didn't get a confirmation that both problems can be resolved tonight.
Oh, I have that. I have that from Tom.
Okay.
Yeah, he couldn't make it. He actually had committed to one of the athletic banquets. So the badminton is resolved. He's already met with the physical education staff, and we're confident that we can come up with a system to track students so that they don't have to run around, check in with a PE teacher, and then go to study hall. And that, we could provide electronically the physical education teachers with the attendance records of the students who select the study hall. So we feel confident we'll be able to manage that.
And the other comment, I'd like to concur with the other board members that spoke. The junior year is a very stressful time for students. As it turns out, I had 8 children go through the school, so I can't assume that it's not prevalent. I had eight kids go to school, and every one of my 8 kids in their junior year did not have a study hall and did not have a lunch period. And then they had a working agreement, I think because of the same teacher was there each time. In math class, they were permitted to eat lunch. with no consequences. So I think junior year is the year that it can have the most significant impact on the students. And if the other two issues are resolved, I think we should move forward with the original plan of extending it to the juniors this year. And Mr. Cunningham is going to continue to work on the program. I mean, he's got his feet on the ground now. He's been here a year. I think we should be able to ask him to stay on top of this one. And if my wife hits me in the head when I go home tonight or when she sees this, I'll know why.
Any thoughts, Steve?
Yeah,
For those that don't know, my wife is the secretary at the athletic department.
Go for it, Steve.
you sure?
Yep.
I strongly support extending it to the junior class.
Okay.
I don't think that waiting is going to give us any data that we won't get by enlarging the group that can take advantage of it. But I can still remember clearly both of my kids who are now college age struggling to participate in both athletics as well as academics, and it was challenging. So if this had been available to them, I'm confident that they would have taken advantage of it from time to time, at least.
Okay. I think that pretty much settles the...
Yeah, and I just, yep.
Yeah.
So I just want to talk, because I did talk to Tom, and we've talked quite a bit about this, and, he made a recommendation, he stood by his recommendation, but with a couple of weeks to, think about it and digest and really be in the situation that the outcome could go either way, he's willing to support. Well, like he has any other choice, no. No, but I mean, he very much, does not view the decision that's made tonight to keep with the plan as a negative.
Oh, I have full confidence in him. He's been doing a great job.
Yeah, and I think it was just important to,
So
since he wasn't here, to say he's on board.
We will proceed on the original plan then. All right?
Yep.
Works for me. Okay. Are there any board subcommittee reports other than
Special Ed Subcommittee met, and actually it was a meeting with discussions on both special ed and the English language learner programs. We met on Tuesday?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And what was reported is the English language learners are increasing in the district enough that we have to really look at this in the future, what it's going to mean for more, if it keeps going at the trend it's going.
Okay.
Yeah, the numbers were kind of startling, from 46 to 110 over the last, was it 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm sure you heard, but just for the audience, that the regulations changed so that even when children pass the New York State English as a Second Language test, they're still in the program for 2 years, where it used to be optional to have for another year. So the numbers are higher because they're still in program. And we actually really support that recommendation. Just because you pass the test, that support is still really valuable. So it has increased our numbers in that way. It doesn't mean a whole flux of immigrants necessarily coming. So just to share
And
that.
to point out, it isn't just Spanish. There's a lot of immigrants coming from Africa and the Middle East. So
And the Caribbean, yeah,
the
there were three.
languages are getting quite broad.
Okay.
And the other thing that we did learn, I was surprised to learn, is we're getting a new class of students coming in that we have not seen before. And that's students who they refer to as having had their education interrupted. And what this basically means is that students in foreign countries that were displaced from their home and wound up in refugee camps basically ended all educational processing whatsoever. So you have students coming in that haven't been in any type of educational environment for the last 6-7 years at times. So this has put a strain on it for several reasons. The most prominent one, I thought, was that there is no curriculum for that. You've got to feel your way through and see what you can do for these kids and help them out. And I don't want to get anybody mad at me, but I learned that we are looking at a curriculum being developed in the South, in Florida, in Texas, and those areas where they have a large influx of students that have experienced that. So they're working on the problem, and I think it's a credible thing to do, is to take advantage of their experience to start with the program, rather than just assuming we know how to deal with it, since we've only seen these students for 2 months. And they're hopeful that they can get a curriculum package to start with from the development of these consortium of 5 states.
The other subcommittee that's been active lately has been the negotiating committee. And while by law we can't talk about what's going on in those negotiations, I would generally characterize it as going pretty well. We're covering a lot of ground. So.
Yeah, there's been a number of meetings. They usually, the last few lasted 2 hours apiece. We had 4.5 hours worth of this week alone. So it's moving forward, like any negotiation. That's what negotiations do.
We're
right?
currently negotiating with two of our bargaining units,
right.
the CSEA and the HPUEA.
Right. The audit committee also met to discuss, we had some RFPs looking to change our internal auditor. So we had internal auditors come in and explain what they could do for us. There were 3 of them, and a recommendation will be presented at the June 21st on what the decision was for that. Were there any other?
Our policy committee
meeting
is going over a lot of policies. Right? When I think we're up for first review next meeting?
Yeah.
Next meeting.
Yeah.
21 policies, we just said.
Right.
I didn't realize it was quite that many.
Okay. At this time, can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? You want to talk about Darlene retiring, or?
Yeah, we do have one employee retiring, Darlene Calcagni. She's been with us since 2007, and we just want to publicly wish her well and thank her for her service to the district.
Okay. Thank you. That brings us down to...
need to vote?
Oh, yeah. I had a second. Okay. All in favor? Sorry about that. I was.
Yes.
Thank you.
And there's no.
Just raise your hand, Mike. We can see it.
I did.
Thank you. See, if I get distracted during in the middle of things, then I forget. So that moves us to.
Indicative of our gray hair, Steve. That happens.
Listen, youngster. All right.
24 hours doesn't make that much of a difference.
Well, it's still.
Can we
You're still younger than I am. And so, can I have a motion for special education placement?
So moved.
Second.
Dan, any comments there?
I've reviewed the packet and recommend its adoption as presented, and I thank the special ed subcommittee meeting for encouraging me that we're going to get done, because they said they have almost all of the meetings done and they were all being reviewed by now, but what to say is the backlog is close to 400 by the time they write them up and we get to pass them, so.
Yeah, a lot of work.
I may be taking them on vacation with me.
All right. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you. Okay, I have a motion for first consideration of the new chemistry books.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? Thank you for the presentation. I'm really excited about I'm excited about the e-book part.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
All in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Thanks, Mike.
I guess the question we didn't ask, I'm assuming that the e-book package that we're getting will function on our Chromebooks, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, oops.
It will, yeah.
Are we just approving the calendar?
Well, just, go through the motion, and when it's time for comment, I need to share something with you, so.
Okay.
But let's vote on it, because.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the calendar for the 2018-2019 year at a glance?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Oh, give Mike for a second there. Yeah, right, all right. Done. Any discussion?
Just a quick question. I looked at it, and I believe it's in, but we've had an issue or concern this year with this change of the state way of counting up days and half-days and stuff like that, that we realized that the half-days we give at the end of the school year, we didn't meet what the state requirements were. It looks like this calendar does not have those half-days allocated at the end of the year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's accurate, and it's not about the particular half-days at the end of the year, it's the total number of days and how they're calculated and what counts as a student day. So I am going to encourage the Board of Education to adopt the calendar as is. So in addition to finding out this year in December that the State Education Department wanted to review calendar requirements mid-year, and the infamous December memo that State Ed issued was a little bit problematic. On the heels of that, because they wanted mid-year, after all of us were in swing, for us to revisit ancient rules for calendar development that nobody had looked at in a long time, so we learned a lot through that process. Immediately following that, they gave us the new rules for the calendar for next year, a completely different way to build the calendar, a completely different way to count minutes versus days and total number, and they gave us drafts, they gave us spreadsheets, they gave us calendar calculators. They said, build your calendar for 2018-19 using this format. And today I got the email that said, please contact your regent immediately, as soon as possible, that the new calendar formula has actually not been adopted for the Board of Regents. And
God bless our state.
because it was entirely new, the calendar committee, which includes the HPTA, the administrators unit, and several of us administrators, spent countless hours developing this calendar in front of you with all the new rules. And when I got the email today, along with many of my colleagues, we were unaware, because every day we were getting memos saying, this is the calculator to use to figure out if you did it right, this is how you have to do it, that the Board of Regents hadn't actually voted on it. So I did what what we should do at this point, and that was, they were encouraging everybody to email their regent. Ours is Judith Johnson, our Board of Education regent at the state level, and weigh in on the calendar. And so I certainly did, and I encouraged the use of the newly proposed calendar, as ours was complete, along with many colleagues. The new formula for putting together the calendar allows more flexibility in how you put it together, regardless of whether or not we follow the old or new. The number of days does increase, so that the lack of the half days at the end of the year is because things that we thought counted before don't. At any rate, I'm encouraging the Board of Education to adopt this calendar, because if it's a positive vote, it's done. And if it's not a positive vote, we all have to go back to the drawing board, and we'll submit a new calendar once it's finished, which may take a while, because as you can imagine, at this time of year, to stop everything now and rebuild a calendar is a little tricky with our schedules. So at any rate, we will have a calendar either via the adoption tonight or having to piece together a calendar in a very timely fashion so that we can let people know what our calendar for next year looks like. But I just wanted to give you the heads up that
Okay.
we did follow what we were told to do, and then we were told that the Board of Regents hadn't voted on it, so hold tight.
Now I have more clear
Clear as
understanding.
mud?
I have the clear understanding of the comment. Now that I've figured out where it's at, they're going to move it. I didn't think they'd move it that quickly, but
Okay. Well, I think we should just approve what we have. All in favor?
I just have one
Oh, yeah,
question,
sure.
though. So you're saying this new calendar is based on the total minutes of a school day? So that's the way we're changing it to?
Go ahead, Aviva.
Yeah.
School year.
School year?
It's minutes in a day, which for secondary is 5.5 hours, and elementary is 5 hours. You can go over that, but you need a minimum of that. And then on top of that, there's 900 hours a year for K through 6, and 990 hours a year for 7 through 12. So they don't care anymore if you have a short week with a vacation in it with half days.
Okay.
It's then you only get half the hours worth.
Right.
And there's more things that I don't want to complicate with. But in general, it's based on hours, not days.
It's kind of nice they actually listened to our survey. They sent us a survey, remember, we took and we asked if we wanted to go to hours. You guys got all that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
And just since we're talking about the hours and minutes, what we did discover was that to be in compliance, and actually, it is the way the contractual hours were written, but, as time goes on, things change and morph. But in order to be in compliance, not only with the contract, but with the state ed requirement, we needed to add 5 minutes on to the day for middle school and 10 for the high school, for student contact time.
Is that going to change the bus schedules?
But could be by about
Yes,
5
we do.
minutes, give or take.
It would, and we're waiting for all of this to be
To set up.
definite. We don't think families are going to be that inconvenienced by a 5-minute difference, or at the most a 10-minute difference, but we don't want to send that out and get all of that started until we really have confirmation that the state is done and decided.
Okay.
Okay. We vote now? All in favor?
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm hoping we
Okay.
don't have to revisit this.
Can I have a motion for the bid awards, please? For F&O.
So moved.
second.
Any discussion on that? Everyone knows what that's for? All in favor? Opposed?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mike. That brings us to, have a motion for public participation, please.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that? All in favor?
Yes.
I always vote.
Okay, if anybody would like to address the board? Okay, may I have a motion to close public participation, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on that?
Now it's getting late.
All in favor?
Oh, my gosh, I know.
Yes.
Opposed, thank you. Let's see. There are no other matters that I know of. So if anybody, speak up if they have. There is no need for a second exec session. So may I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mike.
Nice, Mike.
Nicely done.
Any discussion on that? All in favor? Thank you, we're now
Yes.
closed.
Goodness.
To discuss a matter with the superintendent's contract.